the
meeting
register
with
is
the
like,
city,
Yeah.
you need a bag? Yes,
Salt
14
Lake.
cents.
public utility.
Well,
I started carrying
They're
bags.
for it.
Sign
Sign it or we're not doing it, which,
I went to school
you know,
there.
that's fine, right?
Well, I don't know if it's fine.
But
You
what
want
I'm
to
saying
carry
is
your
their
bags
pro-
really
we
fast?
have to play their game if we want to get in and use that property.
We're human, we don't
Yeah,
know
but
about
except
financial
unless
incentives.
the things we were asking for were unreasonable, but it's
I
like,
feel good
no.
about the world, and I do recycle at
so-
home, but it's
Well, yeah,
because
that's what I'm
I
saying,
know
in my
how good that
discussion I
is.
had with them, I mean, they all said the same thing, we got to a point that
I was ticked off.
they are all for doing it,
And now they don't want
but
it.
they
I
told
was
me
ticked off
either
when Logan to
you
Syracuse.
sign what we give you,
That we had three.
Okay,
the three
or
it's not in our
Paul, are
ability
we
to do it.
ready to go?
Or they don't have to need to do it, I guess would
It's
want
easier to
to
get rid of your stuff.
Yes,
So
sir,
I guess my
we're
question
recording.
is, what's the?
Okay,
what's
welcome
the-
back, everyone, to our work
and
session.
how do we
I
want
haven't,
to
I haven't
approach
looked
it?
at it in 6 years,
It's
so I don't know
8:30.
what the issues are.
Hopefully
One
we'll
was,
be out of here
one was
early again.
indemnification,
Right.
this
Mr.
level
Reinhardt?
indemnification, and.
We had several citizen comments I'd like to,
I've got those.
I
in there.
apologize,
You want me to-
Brandon.
let me go through them on my cards real quickly, and you can respond as well. Okay. Nancy Hardy had some comments about the PDD, about building heights and some clarifications. She said 30 stories.
The tier one maximum height, again, it's a legislative item, so it's not an entitlement, but the max.
There seems to be some
It's 300 feet.
misunderstanding that it's an entitlement.
The top of the box is 300 feet. Again, we process this as a rezone, so if a 300-foot building comes in 20 feet away from a house, you can look at that and say, this doesn't fit the context, you need to modify this, and you have broad discretion to do that. So there's no zoning on the property right now that grants them an automatic
No entitlement.
300 feet,
Because
correct.
I remember adamantly myself being opposed to heights like that.
Yeah, it's a zone change, so everything will go through planning commission, come through city council. Really, we've got the Walsh property piece from ICO Development down behind the old city hall that is right in the middle of planning commission right now. That's kind of been our, I mean, it's a real application, but kind of the trial run through the PDD ordinance to see what works and see what's confusing. You know, we can certainly come back and reassess it any time as directed, but
But if we don't think that we're ever gonna have a 300-foot tall building, should it be in our PDD?
you can close the box, yeah. I mean, that's a
That's what we
council.
debated last time, I
You
mean.
debated as a, yeah.
Well, yeah, because to me, it was one higher than that. If I remember
I think it started with, you know, tier one is such a, it's just the gravel pit, it's a unique site, so it's gonna be, you know, this design, master plan kind of thing, so the box is a lot bigger, and it gives a lot of room to work within, and then the parameters were kind of added.
Yeah, just philosophically, I personally have a problem going anything higher than we have through the whole comic book, but I wouldn't do anything any higher personally, but I'm open, what I remember back then was just being open to discuss any unique aspect of that site. So that's where we left some greater parameters, but, yeah, but I.
So, I mean, the way I look at it, the box is really big, but you don't have to fill it all the way up, and the council has that authority.
What's the downside of shrinking the box, in your mind?
Nothing necessarily.
Well, it would be potential like what happened with the ICO site where what their desires were a little bit greater than what the box was, and so we felt the need to make it a little bit bigger so that it would accommodate.
Yeah, the density was changed in that application,
And there was also the density.
as
I
requested
think
by
the
the
only
applicant.
downside would be communicating to the public. If we put a maximum of 10, they're gonna hear they want 10 stories or
Yeah.
whatever it is. That would be the only
Yeah.
downside.
So the downside, I guess, is if you lower it too much, then you're going to take away the incentive to go through the extensive
but
plan
I
development district process and switch more to a conventional rezone and then development where the council has a little bit less control.
But we also don't want to communicate to developers that that's even a real possibility.
And if it's not a real possibility, then,
Well, that's why they come into this pre-meeting here.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, if someone come in and propose 300-foot tall buildings, I'd probably say, sorry,
It's outside the character of that.
yeah, and they wouldn't get a huge change there.
Yeah, maybe we should change the maximum to those office.
It's always, that's the biggest debate is height.
Now, I will say, going down to, 6 stories in a site like that, if there's a building in the middle of the gravel pit tucked back against the mountain, an 8-10-story building might not be an impact back there, but if you take away the option,
That's
I
interpretation,
think-
it's interpretation again.
It is, but I do think it starts to remove the incentive to just not rezone that, attempt to rezone that to something like office research development and build a corporate center there. Where you don't get the unique public spaces, you don't get the kind of the bells and whistles that the PDD on paper will grant the city the authority to kind of work towards with a developer. So it's a trade-off thing. The PDD is an exhaustive process, requires partnership with the council up front, and gives the council wider discretion to approve or deny because it's a rezone. The trade-off is there are more intense development incentives, assuming a project is developed and designed to meet the city's vision.
Yeah, the interpretation is interesting, because I remember what was presented, you correct me, Scott, because you were there, that the original presentation showed that we would allow up to 30 stories, and the justification was we have that's how big the scar is on the side of the mountain. And I remember myself being bothered by that, because I think by reclamation, I remember compromising, saying a maximum of 10, even though a couple of us were saying a maximum of 6. We said we'll leave it 10 so that there is that ability to review and analyze if there's any really unique thing in interpretation. So when I hear, I mean, now we're talking feet rather than stories, which I
Yeah.
understand, but
Well, I think the majority of us are in the same opinion, so being that we have the final say with the PDD.
we'll have that say later too. I mean.
We'd only be changing the zoning to address a further future council who might potentially change it anyway.
That's why I thought, let's look at the proposals that come through, and we can, I mean, that's the time where, because you're right, if a future council, if they liked it more, they could certainly re-expand it, but I like the concept, at least, of someone being able to come in and propose something that's a little more master planned and not constrained otherwise.
And I think the biggest impact you'll see, I don't know if impact's the right word, this north portion certainly will have, you know, if it's as they've discussed, will have an impact on the area, but it's going to be that south portion of the gravel pit, the large property, whenever the granite construction is done with their operation, that's where you're going to see the majority of that development come through. So, you know, there's time to think about it and work on it, but certainly, yeah, it's a policy decision if we want to revise anything in that ordinance.
I think you keep it 30 if you're okay with 10.
And
I
it-
just
and
think
it's-
when you
yeah,
think
it's not-
about the 30, you think about how some developers develop.
I'm
They
not
come
okay
in
with 30
high.
stories.
Well,
though.
No, it's
Some
not
people come in
stories.
high,
30
some
stories
people-
would,
sorry.
I'm
I
saying that-
apologize, go
I
ahead.
mean, that's what she said, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead.
300 feet, is that
Right,
correct?
right, yeah.
To me, I think a story is 10 feet, so I say 30.
Yeah, you know, 12,
Maybe.
15 probably, is what you're gonna end up.
What is this? 12? 15?
Yeah, probably 12.
You think a building would be this, would have, an office building would have this?
Well, no, but
height?
then there's gaps between stories, so you have,
Okay.
there's space between floors.
Okay, anyway, let's just say 20.
Sure.
If we say 300 feet, somebody could conceivably come in and say, okay, I want 300, knowing that they're trying to get 200. So the bar is going to allow somebody to go high so that they can come in higher than maybe we'd like to. If we're okay with that, that's fine, but.
Well, no, I guess I'm bugged, because I remember very clearly, the maximum we said was, we were throwing out 10 stories, we put that to a footage, but I don't remember being 300 feet. I guess I'm caught off guard, if that's what we approved personally.
That's what's in the ordinance
Do
today.
you remember approving 300 feet?
Yeah, that's on the one, and that's only on the very back section, I mean, it goes with the thing. And again.
Remember,
I
T.
guess-
Tyler and I both of us saying we were gonna get high, and we
On
came
the-
down to, we equated it to 10 stories from 30 stories to cover up the whole
And that
sky.
would probably be the case. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to what council people are going to be ultimately okay with, regardless of whether they start negotiating. I mean, we went through this process with Tabachi. It wasn't PDD, but the reality is the owner wanted to do something that was way beyond. He could have proposed, if it was a PDD, if that had existed, he certainly could have proposed it, but I don't think it would have gone any further, simply because there wasn't any support on the council to grant that type of
Christine,
entitlement.
to Christine's point, it is a negotiation tactic to come in high and then go down, and it is a tactic because it is effective.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, sure.
So
And
that's
you
something
look at,
to
you
keep
look
in-
at the Cottonwood Mall too, and that's, sure don't want to get anything like that by misleading anyone early on.
right.
I mean,
And by the time they present to us, they have spent some money already.
yeah, and maybe, might not to put you in an awkward position, maybe in a future meeting, we could just revisit, for me at least, a height issue. Because I remember pretty clearly, I'd love to call T. Tyler and see if he understands differently, but I remember, I thought that we compromised down to a 10-story, and whatever equated to that in feet, and I realize it's more than 10 feet a story.
Yeah, but it's not 300.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what's in the ordinance now is 300 maximum proposable height, and then the height restriction is graduated based on distance away from the
I
Wasatch
remember
Boulevard
that, I
corridor.
remember that clearly, yeah. Right,
So
I
you're
was
300.
thinking along in the gravel pit of somebody throwing out a 30-story building with the justification, you've got a 30-story high scar, therefore just cover it with the building. And I went, whoa. And I
That'd be
remember
enormous
very
building.
clearly opposing that, thinking there's a way to do reclamation. And I remember in my own mind compromising to 10 stories for a talking point with the comment back to me, you can always, that's just your max, you can talk to me, you never have to go above 6 if you didn't approve it. And I thought T. Tyler and I, but if we could bring that back sometime. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, if I'm alone.
I don't see it as an entitlement, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Other than if somebody's interpreting how it becomes.
Well, then they come up and they shut up and say, sorry, you're crazy, and I'm not gonna get my support. I mean, there's the other side of that, you can say, well, it's in the general plan, so if they ask for the zone change and it matches, you kinda have to give it to them. I don't feel that they're entitled to a zone change simply because the general plan says that. The timing and density and all those things apply as well. So-
Well, let's not spend any further time on it tonight, since it's just brought up by a constituent, but I would, if someone will join me, I'd love to bring that back, at least for the discussion, and,
The whole ordinance, the height,
the height for me, that's one thing I'm concerned about
Yeah, just
right now.
and by bringing it back, what would you like on the table in front of you when
Well,
that
listen.
discussion happens?
Maybe brief us on what the PDD says with respect to height,
Okay.
and then let's have some discussion and see if we want
And maybe
to.
Mike theorize on any ripple effect that we haven't gone through.
Okay.
Shelton's back too, but yeah.
Did you have your open house,
Mhm.
did you get any feedback, and then maybe any feedback that
Yeah,
would
did
be
8 or
interesting to
10
us?
people come up with you?
15.
Wow, cool. Yeah,
So,
good.
and
Something like
about
that.
half of them were new faces, so I think that's pretty good. It was more educational, and I think just clarifying, it's a complicated thing to, when most land use works one way and this is a little bit different, to clarify that the PDD is not a zone. It's a tool used to create a zone. And part of the creation of that zone is attaching a development plan right to it. So it really does give the city council a lot more discretion, whereas, a project like the corporate center, or even Canyon Center, once the zoning is entitled there, you know what could go there, but you don't know exactly what will or where it'll go. And then when the site plan comes in, it's more administrative. It doesn't even come to council, it's all planning commission at that point. Just merges those together and puts the authority in front of you.
Okay. Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, we'll schedule that.
Mark Mackless on the fault line thing.
Yeah, I talked to him. There were a few pieces of information that he did not have with him. We do have another letter signed by Perigi, the engineer on the project, and another map, a survey map that does show the calculations for the downthrown side, and the certification is based off of that map. And
So when you say map, are you talking sketch?
no, it's a survey grade drawing that shows the site, shows the fault lines, and the whole left side's filled
And the
with.
formula?
Yeah, the formula's on there, and all the calculations are all right on there.
How many of those formulas do we have?
Well, it's one formula
I
to
mean,
calculate.
But they do it for each footing, because they're at different locations obviously.
Isn't it just a line through the site and that the building has to be behind that line? That's my understanding.
I believe so.
Well, it's that triangle, like he grabbed.
Yeah, but it's
But
the one fault line has the same angle, so the calculation's
It
the
runs through
same
the
throughout.
site. So they designed the building back behind and all the footings are east of that.
The toe of the footing is on the back side of the
backside.
fault line, yeah. So the bottom of the footing, the face of that toe is at the setback, based on the bottom of that
And
angle.
that formula is taking into
Mhm.
account the slant of the fault.
And there's the whole calculation, the algebra's right on this drawing that accompanied the certified letter we
Why
have.
So
do you
you're
think they're
providing
putting-
Mark that information?
Yeah, I told him to submit a records request and I'll send it right over to him.
So why do you think they're pouring footings before they get that certification?
They received the certification before we conducted a city inspection of the footings.
Don't they just have 7 certifications currently?
They have certification, well, as you move south on the site, the fault line is way over here. It's not, the fault line's not hugging every single footing along the site. So the north 7 were the ones that were right on the line that we needed to get down to the inch. The distance doubles or triples the further south we go. So based on the information I sent to Brad and got back from Brad, he's satisfied with what has been submitted. And relying on him as the engineer, I'm confident moving forward and where we are.
One other thing he brought up was that IVC, we were using 2003.
So the ordinance, in our ordinance, there's a table in there that is the minimum setbacks that are to be used for when you're calculating a setback from a fault line. The table that's in our code was pulled from the, I don't know if it's 02 or 03 or 04, one of those versions of the IBC. And certainly I'm sure there are updated tables. We could do a text amendment to just update that table to a more recent version.
So last time Tim Thompson was here, he left with a takeaway to return and report on potential tightening of our ordinance.
Okay.
I think it would be really easy to, we're operating on 2003 International Building Codes when the latest version is 2015.
I saw a 2012 version and some of the setbacks actually decreased from our ordinance, so I don't know if we use a
And he
more
said he
restricted
looked, when he
version.
did the analysis, he compared the new best practices and said that we're still within those.
Yeah, and another
We should
thing,
update it still, though.
another option would be to reference, use this table or the most recent
Most
version in the
recent
IBC. So then we don't have to update the code every
Yeah.
time a new one comes in.
Shane, I thought we had done that. Don't we just reference the IBC code in our ordinances?
Yeah, in our building code section, but I think we're talking about the sleds ordinance, and I don't know that ties back into
The
So I
that.
think
sleds?
as Mike suggested, though, we can,
We can add the language, but the sleds ordinance has a table and it's specific to one version of the IBC. So to update that, we'd either need to update the reference in the ordinance or update the table itself. It doesn't change what we can do on Canyon Center because that was processed under
Going
the
forward,
application.
yeah.
But moving forward, certainly, yeah,
yeah.
we can update the language to
Yeah,
use
I
what's
think we
current.
should probably use, or our wording should say the most current version of IBC. I mean,
And-
they are
Because I-
But we got that
internationally
feedback from
recognized.
even the state, right, when they came, didn't we get, maybe not the.
Yeah, I think
but-
they referenced there is a newer version of
And that we should update our
table.
code, I
Yeah,
thought,
but I
yeah.
think we all agree conceptually that we, from Munson, we want to do that, yeah.
I guess that my only concern would be is if the new IBC is actually shrunk, that.
If it's what?
There were,
businesses
yeah,
have shrunk on a couple of those.
there were a few where the
Not
setback
considered
goes
good.
down. They still have to do a
What do you
full
mean we
report.
wouldn't wanna consider doing it if it's smaller, I mean,
If the new IBC has smaller setbacks and we would prefer to keep the larger ones for setbacks from faults, then
I
just
think
right.
that'd be pretty
Well, this is
good.
going
against the
forward.
international building code?
Thinking that we know, that we laymen know better than the IBC, I think we best trust the IBC.
Well, that's kind of, sorry.
No.
Yeah, they don't change a lot. I think the residential setback in the two tables I saw was a 5-foot difference, but we still require the full study, the calculation. That can recommend a higher distance. Those are just minimums.
As a takeaway, will you ask Tim Thompson just to give a quick review? And also the language list. Are we pretty much in agreement over the current IBC?
Well, I think that was, even Tim recommended that in one of our early meetings, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Even at the last one, right?
We'll just go back and look at our ordinance and do like the state typically does, of just saying we're the most currently adopted building code by the state. And so let's just look at that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Now, just a reminder, a text amendment will run through it takes a couple months to get in
Yeah.
front of you.
But yeah,
My projects are,
Piling up?
there's a list going on right now, so we'll work on it if you don't hear for a little bit.
yep,
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten about it.
appreciate that. Okay, Jen Frederiksen talked about planning commission, and then she asked for us as a mayor and council to give reason for each of our votes. Now, we may have all interpreted this differently. My interpretation was that she was asking me to clarify with her if we voted against something, to give justification. I have a problem with having to explain my yes vote on every single action, but if I'm giving a no vote, which is something opposing what's proposed, I think that I support giving that, but I didn't interpret what she was saying is that we should explain every person's individual vote if you're voting to approve something that's been out on the agenda.
Yeah, my interpretation was that she wanted a brief explanation as to our thoughts behind our yes or no. So,
Yeah, I
Meaning
don't.
what you did
meaning
tonight.
what I did tonight,
On
like
every
one
single-
sentence.
For each
If it's-
person individually, everyone?
Well,
Probably depends on the
I
topic,
guess-
but I think tonight,
Yeah.
what Tally said was completely
Oh, sure,
appropriate.
sure, but I don't see having 5 explanations.
If they're different, if I'm different on my no, then you, I probably.
Well, for no, yeah, oh, on any no, vote, I agree
or if
wholeheartedly.
I give a little explanation and someone says, you know, I see, Tally sees it that way, I'm voting yes because, and emphasizes something else, I think that might be appropriate too.
But I'm saying,
That's always the case.
when I ask her, do we have any discussion? That's what I guess I'm saying it is, rather than all of a sudden vote and then we go through a discussion. But anytime there's discussion, say your position, or I will be voting no on for this reason, or I'll be voting yes for this reason, I think that's an appropriate time personally, rather than right before every vote. But there are certain votes that, you know, you can do what you want,
And we have, some larger items.
but on every one,
That gets down into individual discretion, you can choose to do it as often or not, that's one of the rights you have for
yeah, I don't want to
chair.
take away from the desire to be transparent when we're talking about the dollar amounts and for what the project is and stuff like that. But it's when it comes to your vote, I mean, I think if it's something you feel opposed to, then I think that's what I interpret saying, you should appreciate your rationale behind that. But if I vote for a resolution to approve some road paving, and say, well, I'm supporting this because it's in the budget and it's part of our plan, therefore moving forward. I mean,
I don't know what other city councils do.
I think a lot of, it's outside of something that's unusual. A lot of the stuff we do is
if it's unique or it's
signing contracts.
if it's controversial, if there's a difference of opinion, I think definitely you state your position. But
I think though, the public loves to hear that, hey, they saved 85,000 by going with that bid.
Oh, I think that, yeah.
Little tiny snippets. I
Well, no,
think
but see,
are
you did,
valuable.
but see, you did that when we said discussion here, but you didn't do it, right, it's okay, on justifying your
I do it
vote.
before each vote. When you call for discussion,
Right.
before you call for vote.
Right, that's what I
Okay, so
said.
do it at the right time.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah, perfect.
Just keep in mind that Tally did have like surgery today. This is late for her.
Right.
I don't
This
mean.
is late for me and.
No, because I'll always give two
I was
opportunities.
Totally worn out.
I'll always give two opportunities. At first, when we talk about it, before you even make the motion, and the second, in discussion, and for the final vote. So I'll give two opportunities, but I thought she was saying at the end, I think at the end, if someone says, I'm going to vote opposed to it, I think what I'm hearing is that they would like to understand that objection, which was totally, I think, something I support, actually.
Yeah, except if it's, like you said, somewhat more controversial, then yes, I
Yeah.
think people want to know why.
Yeah, they do, yeah, because there's,
But I voted no last week and I didn't say anything and Cassie reached out to me, so
Yeah.
that was a helpful reminder.
yeah, yeah. Okay, idling ordinance, Jenny Nazaro. And Sustainability Committee and the supporting of that, and I think we're moving ahead on.
The 25th of September, we have, what was his name
Yeah.
again?
Lisa
Yoder.
Yoder, yeah.
And we sent invitations to all the mayors that were on that list, and I sent an email of that letter to all the city managers, so.
Any RSVP?
Oh, I didn't ask for RSVPs, I just
I
said,
was curious.
yeah, nobody indicated that so far that they're coming, but they all acknowledged that they received it, so
Okay.
we'll see who shows up.
Okay. All right. You have those?
Yep.
Okay, a review of calendar items. The Arts Council has asked the city council to look at the artwork in the hallway out here in the lobby, select one painting that's city council choice, right?
Yes, a unified decision from the council members, and the mayor has a separate.
Yeah, I've chosen mine. And I can give you that before I leave if you want it. But,
I'll be glad to email that to Annie after the meeting.
so they would like it by,
No.
Actually, the 20th is the,
so you
the,
three need to get together and say, this is one we.
Is that the?
the 20th, the
I'd
20th,
let the car show
Is
one.
the show,
yeah. The 20th is the open, is the
awards.
the awards, not the awards, but the open house.
Did we miss the other award too, the landscaping one?
No, that's coming up. That's
Actually,
what
that's
we're
coming
talking
up.
about next week as well.
That's-
And
It's
that's
not how we're
actually,
gonna talk about
yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, those names were sent out through an email from Perry. That was what I was going to get from the other day when I came back, said I forgot halfway down the
Because
hall.
I asked.
It was for Mike
New
to
employee,
email those back
Who has
out.
those? You have.
The nominations, I've got them. Do you
Yeah,
need
because I
them?
went to get them today and she says you have them.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you can re-email those.
Yeah, I'll send them out.
Yeah, because mine's just the corporate side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I got halfway down the hall and a phone call caught me and I came back to you and said, what was I walking out of here to
Mike,
do?
you should
It
have my
was-
response in there.
So you'll forward those to the council
I'll,
again?
I'll check for you.
If not, just call me.
I don't think we'll be able to get the art winners that you select into the October newsletter, but for the arts, but for the beautification, I held a spot for that. So
Yeah.
if you can get that to me in the next few days.
I will,
I've got a
I'll send the
conference on
nominations
tomorrow.
out tomorrow, and if I don't have a response, or you've already given me one, just send it again, just.
Yeah, I'll have mine to you by Monday.
So we pick one?
Does your notification come with a snapshot of the house?
It's not-
Uh,
Could it?
Gives you, just gave us, just gave us an
well,
average.
yeah,
What I did in District 3 last time, you can do it differently. I found 3 people, one a master gardener, one someone who could represent zero scale, all different areas, and had them go around and give me their recommendation, and they created a, wasn't there a form we used?
Yeah.
yeah, there's a nomination form.
There's a form.
That's what I have as a
There was an
collection.
evaluation form. Wasn't there an
There,
evaluation?
it's, you write your name and who you're nominating and why.
But then we used to need,
Yeah.
it seems like.
There's a
There's a
judging
judging
form.
Oh, judging form.
That's what it said.
How does it look for this, this, and
Okay.
this?
Yeah, and we used that and,
It's right there.
yeah.
So you have the judging sheet?
I
So-
can have it all.
Yeah.
Well, next week might be pushing it a little for the newsletter, so I just need to know whether or not we can get this sooner than later. 'Cause
We have a conference all day tomorrow, next day, the next day, so if we all work at night, so. I can do, mine's easier, but the other ones, depends how many nominations they have. It's, how many
There were
nominations?
3 or 4 each.
There's a handful.
Is that all? Oh,
Yeah,
not
it's
a
not,
ton.
it's not a,
Last year I had like,
I didn't use a master gardener, well, I guess
Yeah.
I kinda did.
I did a
There's
nine,
3 in
So
District
she's trapped in
1,
her car.
4 and 2, 3 and 3, and 5 and 4,
Now, when is Shelton back?
and 5 and 4.
Friday,
Next.
this
You've
kind
got
of
the
thing.
most, you and I have the most.
If you can commit to over the weekend, I can still make some room for it.
Oh, cool.
I'll send it out, I'll send a reminder.
Okay, well, I mean, I get the winners.
Right.
And the pictures, yeah.
Okay. Super. I'm glad to see that, man.
To the November newsletter, I guess.
I like that idea, though. Maybe you could have them submit a photo
Yeah, there you
next
go.
year, and
It
then
really should be a
and
photo.
then
We can do that.
Okay.
It's easy to send them.
We can try to revamp, I mean, it's a paper form right now that they have
Yeah.
to log into us. We can come up with some app where you take a picture and submit it that way.
Dan, I think we can get you a decision before we leave. Council decision on the art.
Oh, the art thing tonight?
I think so.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
Yeah, mine's done.
Okay, thank
Go out
you.
there right now and do it.
Then what I might do is just swap out the beautification award story for the art story, I guess, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Just let me know, thank you.
Okay, let's go through the calendar real quick, and if we want to take a few minutes to go out there, but we do have a closed session discussion tonight.
Mayor, there was one other subject that you and I talked about, kind of let me know you want me to bring that up.
On the calendar?
Well, it was just from the executive staff meeting.
Oh, okay, well, let's
Go ahead, let's do the
do the calendar,
first.
let's give you just comments about that. So we got the conference starting tomorrow, everything's registered, right? So you all have the agenda, I assume. Look at that. Bark in the Park, in Mountain View on 15th at 10 a.m. And we mentioned on the 25th, we got environmental sustainability, and then on October 2nd, the storage committee.
My husband's thrilled to spend their anniversary with y'all.
On October 2nd?
Yes.
There are a few things that are coming up on there too. The Monster Mash is on the 26th of October.
Did she decided for sure?
It's the Friday before, I think it's the 26th.
Let's make sure Paul gets
She,
him on the
because she was
calendar.
talking about changing it, she didn't?
She did last year, but last it was settled, last I talked to her was definitely the 26th.
She talked about doing it on the Monday. We have CHU tomorrow, so.
I'm pretty sure she put it right on that date, so that's what we have advertised, I think, and she has it in the newsletter submitted that way, so that's what it is. And then also there's the trunk or treat on Halloween Day, in the parking lot, 3 to 5,
Yep.
CHBA.
We're missing all of Halloween this year.
Let me double check on that, Scott, thanks for, yeah, but I'm pretty sure
There was
she's,
discussion, last I heard.
I'm
it,
pretty sure
I
she
think
submitted it for
short.
Friday, so.
I'm not going to be there either day.
Your youth council is heavily involved in that, right? And they're awesome, by the way, when they do that. They really are. What's it called again?
Okay, a couple things just real quickly as walk-on items. One is that we failed to talk about Mike's development activity report. Any questions on that? I had one.
Sure.
On the Horsley property,
Yeah.
is that all resolved?
So the fence dispute between Mr. Horsley and his neighbor
Remember that one?
was a civil dispute, and parts of that are still ongoing. Mr. Horsley has applied. Technically, it's a wall height extension. That's what the CEP is named, but actually this is a reduction. So he is trying to reduce the height of his fence, combination of wall and fence all around his property to be no higher than 8 feet from his neighbor's side, from the ground all the way up. So there was an administrative hearing today. That's a hearing where more minor applications are delegated from the planning commission, and I act as the hearing officer. We held a hearing, we heard concerns and issues and opinions from both sides. They were the only public in the meeting. We're gonna take those issues back and look at them and review them with Shane, and then the decision is scheduled tentatively for 2 weeks from today. But it's an application to bring the height of the fence down.
That seems strange, you'd have to apply to reduce it. Is this 'cause
Well,
it's
the
non-conforming or
current fence ordinance did not exist at the time that this issue first arose a few years ago. So we think they're just they're trying to comply with the current code to get down to an 8 foot. Otherwise, they'd have to go all the way down to 6.
Oh,
Combined
You have
height.
to comply with.
you
He's
have to
a,
rip it, you can't-
because it's a civil issue at this point, I don't know exactly where the court has landed. We have some documentation that we'll review, but he approached us with this application to get down to 8.
It's been a long-standing issue, so it's good.
Maybe it's something that they both can live with, and I don't know if that.
Okay, we have a couple
Just-
projects, yeah. A couple minor things in District 3 and District 4. Any questions, anyone? It's good information.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects right now. They're all
Yeah.
fairly minor, but they still going to take time to get through the planning commission. So our staff's working hard. They're very busy.
Okay.
And the link on the front there, if you haven't, it's pretty cool. Matt Taylor, our senior planner, put together an interactive map where these parcels are all shaded in on an interactive GIS map. You can go click on it and this information will pop up and give you a geographic perspective of each of these things is. It's pretty cool.
I appreciate this type of information. Give us a quick glance at how much you're dealing with in your department. So.
Sure, yeah.
On maps section of our website.
No, it's just a link on the actual report you get. I'm not sure where it's hosted or where it's living right now.
Hey, speaking of which, don't mean to bring up a whole subject, but our fabulous new website, to have links like that so the
Yep.
public can see this.
These are posted online, so this will be there. And because the map is a new thing, we can figure out a way to post this and build on it month after month. We could do that right now. We'll work on that.
Okay, Bryce, you had your first week as interim city manager, and you had your first department head meeting Monday, and how'd that go?
We're continuing to meet every Monday morning at 10:30 and just review the upcoming agenda, have discussions about projects and things. And so one of the things that was discussed is just in this transition phase, wanting to make sure that we are being responsive to your questions, but also wanting to be careful we don't give any creep into council members directing staff. Now, I look at it a couple of different ways. You are always invited to send an email to council or staff members saying, can you share this information with me? Can you help me understand? We definitely want to keep the information flowing. Also, if you see something around the city or someone brings something to your attention that, say it's Public Works, and you can say, hey, Matt, I don't know if you're aware of this, or it got shared with me. I'm curious on your thoughts of this idea of council giving direction and how we can help our staff feel comfortable that, because whenever you speak, we all take that very seriously. So what are your thoughts?
I think we had a good precedence where we CC John, we CC you.
Are you okay with that?
No.
Well, but again, the question I hear you asking is,
If we're making a request.
if the request, like, if it's an assignment, it should go through you saying, hey, we would like this, what you're saying?
Well, I just want to work out kind of how we're all comfortable doing that so that we don't put the staff in a position of, am I being
They have
directed by the
six bosses,
council? Yeah, 6 different bosses saying, go this direction, go that direction. You know, even Mike tonight made the comment, and mine's very much the same way. We come to a meeting and we walk away with 2 or 3 things, and if each of you have 1 or 2, and that's every week, that list just continues to grow exponentially, and it becomes hard for us to judge, well, what is the highest priority? Now, something I'm going to be working on is creating that list that comes from the council's retreat, and then other things like the 3 or 4 that came up tonight, so that staff knows, okay, here's the highest priorities, and we may even have to investigate ways of working with you as a council on prioritizing those.
Well, and to me, that's a standard practice, is if it's really easy for us to come up with ideas and concepts and challenges, but it takes a lot more time on your side to do the research and implement those. So if ever you feel that the workload is growing to the point that you can't respond, then you do need to come back and say, okay, I've got these 4 or 5 projects, what's your priority?
Right. And as an example right now, where, you know, I'm filling the responsibilities that Dean once filled, I filled, and now John is filled with my emails filling up anywhere from 50 to 100 emails a day. And then the mayor gave me 3 projects to work on for this council meeting. Plus you had a list of projects that I was going to work on during the 60-day transition period. It doesn't take very long for that list just to fall off the plate and go, oh, where do I start? So we will work as a staff to prioritize.
And we'll be sensitive to not adding to individual pardon me, I just not going through you.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's a quick piece of information and copy you.
Well, and again, I don't ever wanna stop you getting information when you're requesting it. If there's a question on, we really need something to happen, you know, let us know and we'll work with you. We definitely don't wanna hold things up.
Well, there's also a difference between asking a question for information and giving the direction to go do this.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a huge difference there.
and hopefully you're all, I trust you're all good judges of that, and so if we feel like there's a situation, we'll probably approach you individually and just say, hey, this might be better brought up in the council meeting as far as, does the council support going in this direction, things like that, but I'll address it individually, just thought it would bring it up.
Good reminder.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Anything else that needs to be brought up quickly as a walk-on? If not, we have, okay, Mike, we'll hold off yours for later.
Do that next
Bring
week,
back
plan
to
on that.
his- in his district. We just have one closed session on personnel. We talked about our city manager position, so
Did we also want to talk about
seems like there was one other one.
land acquisition and I think you had asked Shane if we could talk about
Land acquisition, I think.
what would it, I don't know what it
I
would be
think it'd be
called.
land acquisition.
I'm sorry?
I think it'd be land
I
acquisition.
think so,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, yeah. So, let's do that. Land acquisition first, and we'll do personnel second.
We do, we want to close the open session, open closed session for the purpose of talking about land acquisition and personnel.
All in favor? Aye, 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 aye.
So I'll stick